Reality check, humankind. It really is all in your head. No, I don't mean your imagination. This is all the way more real than anything else ever. But whatever you think you thought, you didn't. You don't think any of your own thoughts up by yourself. Now, before you argue with me on that, hear me out. You really think that any human ever thought of anything that God or the devil didn't think of first? None of us ever did. But it's about thinking right. Now, you might be wondering why I'm saying that we don't think our own thoughts and also that we need to think right. Well, I'm happy to explain that. The fact is that the mind and the brain are two different things. Sure, we process our mind through our brain, just like we process our heartbeat and our breathing and our other body functions through our brain. But that's the real truth of it right there. Processing center. That's what our brain is. It processes everything needed for us to live, including our minds. The key part to remember, however, is that throughout our lives, the mind changes and grows, while the brain does not. Admittedly, the human brain does double in size the first year of life, making it about half the size of an adult brain. By age 3, it reaches 80% of its full size. Then at age 5, it's at 90% of its total growth. With all of that being said, it is equally true that at birth, babies are born with all the brain cells they will have for their entire lives. The change in size just makes room for the connections between the brain cells to form. Even that only happens till the early 20s at the latest. After that, the brain does not change in size anymore. In other words, it doesn't grow anymore. Yet we humans are never too old to learn, and that grows our minds. Scientific fact is that, contrary to popular belief, we humans do not only use 10% of our brains. On average, a human being uses about 90% of their brain. Whether someone's a high school dropout or a nuclear scientist, that percentage of brain used does not change. The amount of mind being used by those two individuals, however, is undeniably very different. At this point, I have no doubt that many of you are probably thinking something like, but your mind is in your brain, so they're really the same thing. Except that's not actually true. Ready for the real truth? Your mind isn't your brain. Your mind is your soul. Remember, your brain is just another physical organ in your body, and it will stay here when you physically die. Your mind will move on to exist only on the spiritual level after your body stops working. Soldiers deal with reality, right? So, let's see how real God's truth is using some accepted scientific facts. First off, we go to Biology 101. Our 5 senses, taste, touch, hearing, sight, and smell, are what tell us, meaning our minds, everything we know about the world around us. Next, we go to Psychology 101. Thoughts become behavior. And let's put the truth together with Physics 101, with the fact that every action has an equal and opposite reaction. Please note that nothing in that physics fact limits it to physical matters. So clearly, our minds sense all that we know. And our thoughts directly result in our behaviors. And nothing just happens. Everything that happens is a reaction to some kind of action. Why do you think that every thought we have has choice to it? Because any thought that any human ever had is either God or the enemy's forces whispering to us from the spiritual level of existence. Since our mind is our soul, that makes it our connection to the spiritual world. That's also why it sounds like us, even though it's not. Remember, God gave us free will to choose, not original thinking of things nobody ever thought of before. That doesn't even make sense because God is all-knowing. But all of this is actually awesome news for us. Here's why. We can't control what thoughts come into our minds. We can, however, control what thoughts we keep in our minds. So if you really want to insist that your thoughts are your own, you give up your own power with a lie. By accepting that our thoughts do not originate from ourselves, we own what is truth and we can use our power better. How? Because this enables us to make better choices about what thoughts we keep in our minds. Our power is explained best by the following question. Who are we listening to?